What is going on, everybody? My name is Makyiah. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a review on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I just saw it this past Wednesday, so I decided to go ahead and do a review on it and let it be my first YouTube video. So first of all, I'm going to start with a spoiler-free review for people who haven't seen it yet. If you have not seen this movie, get up right now and take your butt to the theater. Not only is the cinematography, the acting, the storyline phenomenal, but literally just, if you're a Marvel fan in general, you need to see this movie, because this movie definitely sets up Shang-Chi to be an important person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So as a Marvel fan in general, you should definitely go see this film. But I'm also telling you, even if you aren't a Marvel fan, you are going to love this film. The action sequences are phenomenal. The scenery, the beautiful things that they show you in this film, the way it's filmed is just out of this world. So I definitely recommend you go see it. So basically, spoiler free, it tells you Shang-Chi's backstory. It tells you about his mom, his dad, his sister, his friend Katie. You see a character that you saw previously before in the movie. You are able to get to see these amazing fight scenes and these amazing flashback scenes in the film. So I definitely, truly believe that you should definitely get up and go see it if you have not seen it yet. You will not regret it. You will, promise you, mark my words, you will thank me if you go get up and see this film right now. And you will cherish the experience forever, because I know I will. So now that we have spoiler-free reviews out of the way, let's get into the actual review. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings starts off with telling you the backstory of Shang-Chi's father, aka the Mandarin. You get to see him conquering different cities and states and buildings, and just conquering basically the entire nation with the 10 rings. And he has an army of people behind him, but pretty much he is the army. He and these 10 rings that he has have an unimaginable amount of power, and also they grant him immortality. So his dad is over 1,000 years old, which is insane. So literally, you start off knowing from the get-go that his dad is a heartless figure, and his whole agenda is to conquer and acquire whatever he can. So there's this amazing scene of him and his group of people going into battle against his other people, him literally basically taking out the entire fleet of the army in front of them by himself with just the 10 rings. So you know from the start that these rings are something special, and they hold an immense amount of power from the beginning. And so after you see what his dad is all about, you get to see, it takes you down later on down the line, and you get to see him in this village by the name of Talo. And he decides he wants to acquire this village because it has mystical creatures, and it has beautiful scenery, and it has history behind it. So he decides to pull up in Talo, and he thinks he's going to acquire this village easily, until he encounters this beautiful woman standing in front of the village, who we find out later on down the line is Shang-Chi's mother. And he sees his mom, Shang-Chi's mom, and he's looking at her kind of like, you might as well step out of the way, because me and the 10 rings, you're no match for us. That's what he thought. He met his match that day. He meets Shang-Chi's mother, and he is not prepared. I wasn't prepared either. So he finds out that Shang-Chi's mother is like the only person that has ever been able to go toe-to-toe with him while he had the rings on. His mother, Shang-Chi's mother, is so powerful that she is able to fend him off by herself, even while he's wielding the rings. So as you see them fighting, you see them giving glances at one another. You can definitely see that they like one another. And so they end up falling in love. And Shang-Chi's dad ends up coming back to visit his mom at Talo multiple times. They end up deciding to start a family and fall in love together. And Shang-Chi's mom asks her village of Talo if Shang-Chi's dad can stay with them, and they tell her no, because they don't want someone that has his evil just ways a part of their village, which is understandable when you're looking at it from their perspective. And so Shang-Chi's mom decides to leave with his dad, and he decides to take her back to the Ten Rings compound that he had, where his army is, and that he had acquired over the years. And they start a family. After a few years or so being together, she gets pregnant with Shang-Chi. And then a few years down the line, she gets pregnant with his sister Xialing. So you get to see these beautiful scenes of them being a family and them playing Dance Dance Revolution together and just spending this amazing family time together. And you can just see the love that they have from one another just in the scenes that they share. And you can just truly tell they're a family that's filled with so much admiration and love for one another. So you find out later on down the line, sadly, that Shang-Chi's mother gets murdered by a group of people that Shang-Chi's father, Wenwu, had dealings with. And Shang-Chi literally witnesses his own mother being murdered, which I'm sure caused an astounding amount of trauma. He was only a little boy. Can't even imagine what kind of emotional toll that took on him. And when his father comes home and sees his wife lying dead in the front of their compound, I feel like a switch just goes off in him, and he returns back to the evil, heartless person that he was before, and he puts the rings back on again. And you can just tell that his whole goal is to kill the people who killed her. He actually tells Shang-Chi this really powerful line. He goes, "A blood debt must be paid in by blood." And you know from that moment that he is not playing around, that he has every intention of killing the people who killed his wife. And I also want to mention that the reason Shang-Chi's mother wasn't able to fend off the gang is because when she left the village of Talos, she also gave up her powers, sadly. So basically she was powerless against them, and they were able to easily overtake her, sadly, because there was a lot of them, and she also didn't have her powers anymore. So after that, Shang-Chi accompanies his dad to, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to stick to just his dad and their story right now. And then I'm going to move to the action sequences. But basically, you see Shang-Chi accompany his dad to basically kill this a few members of the gang that killed his wife. And he asked him where the leader is, because the leader is who he wants the most. So he tells Shang-Chi that basically he wants him to become unkillable, and he wants to train him to become a fighter that no one can kill, which he succeeds in doing. So Shang-Chi spends years and years just practicing and acquiring his own different techniques and different powers. And at the age of 14, his dad sends him off to kill the man that killed his mom. And you find out later on in the movie that he lies to Katie, his friend, and he tells her that he insinuates that he didn't kill the guy. But you find out later on, after the battle, that before the battle actually, that he killed the guy who killed his mom. And that's why he wanted to run away from it all, because he didn't want to be that person anymore. So he ends up moving to San Francisco and starts living by the name of Shang instead of Shang-Chi. So you find all that out, but also, a little tidbit, you find out about his sister Xialing, and you see that she wasn't allowed to be taught, because she was a girl, about the ways of the techniques and the ways of martial arts that they were taught. So his sister actually would kind of blend into the shadows, and she would watch Shang-Chi as he trained, and she actually acquired and learned all the skills that he did just by watching him. So you have a lot of respect for his sister from the get-go, because she literally taught herself how to become a fighter and how to defend herself just by watching the way Shang-Chi was trained. So you're kind of like, oh wow, like she really taught herself all this on her own. So you learn a little bit about her, but more about her later. So after you learn about Shang-Chi's father's story and his mother, you see Shang-Chi is a valet in San Francisco. He has a best friend by the name of Katie, played by Awkwafina, and you get to see their relationship, the beautiful friendship they have, and you get to experience their just fun life. Them going to sing karaoke together, and she shares the story about how they met, about how Shang-Chi was in school and this kid made fun of him for his nationality, and he goes and he tries to stick up for himself, and Katie gets in between the two of them right before they start fighting, and she sings the lyrics to Hotel California. And that's how they met, and that's how they became the best of friends. And so you learn from the get-go that they have a very deep connection with one another. And so basically him and Katie are off to work one day, and they get on the bus together, and these guys are on the bus and they're looking at Shang-Chi really weird, and Shang-Chi's like, Katie's like, why are they looking at you or whatever? He's like, I don't know. And so these dudes tell him that they want this pendant that he has around his neck that Shang-Chi got from his mother. It's this beautiful green pendant necklace that they have that he acquired from his mom, and they tell him they want it, and he goes, no, obviously, because that's a gift that he received from his mother. And they tell him, we want it, and he tells them, you're not getting it. And so at that moment, Katie's like, bro, just give it to them, like you can't fight or anything. So she doesn't know. So literally the second he finds out what they're about, he starts fighting with them, and Katie's taken aback, and it only makes him angry. After they hit Katie, it ticks him off even more, and so he really starts going ham on them after that. And so they start fighting. This amazing fight sequence takes place on the bus. You see Shang-Chi dipping in and out of different crevices and corners on the bus to get away from them. And then one of the guys has like a razor fist. He has like a razor for an arm. He has like a sword for an arm. So he starts waving this thing around, trying to slit Shang-Chi's throat, and he accidentally cuts up the electrical system inside the bus. So the bus starts acting up and everything, and so they accidentally kill or hurt the bus driver, and Katie has to start driving the bus, because if not, they were going to get into an accident. So she starts driving the bus and trying to help Shang-Chi as he's fighting these people off. And then you get this really cool scene of Shang-Chi kicking Razor Fist into a different compartment of the bus and telling Katie to cut that part of the bus off after he kicks him into it. So they kind of leave him in the dust, and Katie ends up rolling over this long amount of cars on top of the bus, because it's all she can do to basically keep them from swerving into the oncoming traffic into the street. So it starts off crazy from the get-go. But anyways, you get to see them kind of acquire you see Katie is very shaken up after everything, and she's kind of like, what the heck just happened, Sean? He's like, my real name isn't Sean. She's like, what is your real name then? And he ends up telling her who he is, and she insists on coming on the plane with him so he can go find his sister, because after they steal his pendant, Shang-Chi knows that they're going to go after his sister next. He hasn't seen his sister in years. I want to let that be established and known. After he left the compound at the age of 14, he hasn't seen his sister since. So he has this little postcard that he acquired from her, so he thinks. And he like, okay, this must be her last address, because she sent me this postcard. And so he ends up deciding to go and find his sister was Katie, and so they hop on a plane, and him and Katie joke about his name. He changed his name from Shang-Chi to Shang, and how they're so similar, and how stupid he was for not changing his name to something better. And they get there, and they find out that Xialing is running an underground fight club, like on some Brad Pitt type stuff, and she has literally worked her way up to become like this powerful woman on her own. And so second, that you will get to see Wong. I love Wong from Doctor Strange. You get to see him fight Abomination, which was really funny and cool. And then Shang-Chi ends up going into the arena, and I love this scene where he takes off his shirt, and Katie goes, "Where's your shirt?" And he goes, And so they kind of laugh about that, and then his sister Xialing comes out, and you tell from the get-go, she angry. She is not happy to see him, and they start going at it. And he's literally trying to talk to her. He's like, "Sis, like, I'm trying to talk to you, like, I'm sorry." And she's just like, not having it. She literally is just kicking his butt up and down the arena, not trying to hear anything he has to say at all. So after their fight, he ends up telling her, he's like, "You sent me this postcard, someone stole my pendant that mom gave us, like, I think they're coming after you next." And she's like, "You don't think I know how to take care of myself? Look what all I've done while you've been away, and you left me, and I waited for you all these years to come back, like I was waiting for my brother to return home, and you never came home, so you abandoned me." And so he ends up telling her, "I came here to basically help you." She's like, "I don't need your help." And so after all that, they end up talking about basically their next steps. And basically this alarm goes off in the compound, and Shang-Chi's sister leaves him and Katie basically to die. And he and Katie end up having to go out of a window, and the same men that were on the same people that were on the bus, who are from his dad's compound, start trying to kill him and bring him back to the compound. And so Shang-Chi is trying to not only keep himself safe, but he's also trying to keep Katie safe, because they're going after Katie too. So he's trying to keep an eye on her while also keeping himself from dying, which is hard. And so basically there's this one moment where Katie is hanging on to a piece of bamboo, I believe, and she is about to die. The bamboo is about to snap because they're on this rooftop, and she basically grabbed onto it to keep herself from falling down below. And so she's about to die, and Shang-Chi's running to get to her, and he knows he's not going to get there in time, so he starts to see her fall. He screams out her name, and then as Katie is falling, a hand reaches out and grabs her, and it's the hand of Xialing, and she came back, and she decided to help them fight, and she saved Katie. And so this is funny scene. He tells her after he sees Xialing again, he goes, "You left me to die," and she goes, "Well, now you know how it feels." And they end up going back again, and there's this one masked, I don't think they ever say his name, this one masked person who works for his dad's compound that's like a serious fighter. Like, you get to see flashbacks of him teaching Shang-Chi when he was little. And so Shang-Chi and him go head to head because they face off against one another in the rooftop scene, because Shang-Chi ends up going after him after he steals Xialing's neck pendant, and he's like, "What do they want these necklaces for?" So he starts running after him, and they start fighting, and eventually until Shang-Chi's dad steps out of the helicopter, and he's like, "It's good to see you, son." And he's like, "Dad," he's kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And so he's like, "You need to come home. There's some stuff we need to talk about." And so Katie, Xialing, and Shang-Chi all get on the helicopter, and they fly back to his dad's compound. And so when they're there, they talk. Shang-Chi kind of just takes it all in, just like being back from where his childhood was, and where he has a lot of bad memories about his mom. And he goes back there, and Xialing and Katie kind of have this conversation. Xialing tells her about like how hard she had it and how she brought herself up, and Katie's like, "Heck yeah, like, good on you for really making yourself into something and not letting your past keep you down." And so you get to see this scene where they have dinner with Shang-Chi's dad, and you can just feel all this animosity and weirdness, and Xialing's kind of like, "We're not a family, like, we have way too much going on between us all here. And so he ends up telling him the reason that he stole their pendants from their mother is he shows them, he brings them to this part of the compound, and he puts the pendants inside the eye of this dragon, and he puts them inside their eyes, and this water starts shooting out from all the different compartments, and Shang-Chi and Xiaoling and Katie are kind of all like, what the heck? And basically it ends up converting into a map on the floor, and they find out it's a map of Talo, and it basically shows you, because to give some emphasis, Talo is hidden well. Like, there are certain passages that open at certain times in the day. Talo is a maze, basically. So not anyone can just get in. If you try to go into Talo, you will die, because literally you have to know the right pathways and the right parts of the maze to go into to be able to get into the village at all. So basically Shang-Chi's dad's like, I think they have your mother imprisoned in Talo. And Shang-Chi's kind of like, what? Like, why would you think that? And he's like, I think she's there, and she's been calling out to me. He's like, calling out to you? He's like, yeah, your mother is calling out to me, and she's telling me that she's imprisoned in Talo. And so he's like, I really don't think that's true, Dad. And so basically Wenwu tells Shang-Chi that I'm going to go into this village and burn it to the ground, and so I can get your mother back. And Shang-Chi's like, I will not be a part of that. Like, I'm not going to go to my mom's home and help you kill the people there and burn it to the ground. And so that ticks his dad off, and he goes, whatever, you guys can just be in prison then. So he gets them taken down to this prison after they get into a fight, him, Katie, and Xiaoling. And while him, Katie, and Xiaoling are down there in the cave, they run across Trevor and this adorable faceless creature. I think it's called a Hundun. I don't know if that's the correct way to pronounce it. I think it's called a Hundun or Hundine. And his name is Morris. And you see Trevor who pretended to be the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And you also saw him All Hail the King. And you see him again, you find out that he's become like a jester for Wenwu, Shang-Chi's father. He basically does like monologues and puts on Shakespearean shows for them to keep them entertained. And him and Morris are just chilling down there in the cave. And so they end up finding out that Morris, the adorable little faceless creature, can show them the way to get through the maze to get to Talo. So they're like, great. So Xiaoling ends up finding them a way out of the compound, and they end up in the garage and they steal a car, and you get this super cool scene of them fighting while they're trying to escape. And you get this scene, this cool moment where Katie grabs Shang-Chi's hand, she puts it on the pad so it can open the garage door so they can get out. And it was just a very well done scene, very cool. And you get to see them finally escape, and they're on their way to Talo. And so they get there, and Morris shows them the way through the forest, and they finally get to go to Shang-Chi's home, Shang-Chi's mother's home. And Shang-Chi's kind of just like in awe of how beautiful it is, and he gets to go there. And if they're not welcomed at first, as a matter of fact, there's an army. He tells them, he's like, my dad is Wenwu, or the Mandarin, and he is coming here. And they're like, and there's this man who's basically like, leave. Like, I don't want you guys here. You guys are bringing trouble. Until Shang-Chi's aunt comes up and she's like, you said your mother? That was my sister. And she was like, let them through and let them in. And so he ends up talking to her. He's like, you're my auntie? She's like, yeah, basically. And so he ends up talking to her and finding out more about his mama. And Katie ends up starting to take up archery, which is really cool. She starts practicing with the other archerists, and you get to see Morris and Trevor kind of chill out a little bit while they're there. And you get this very cool scene of Shang-Chi and his auntie fighting, because he goes up to her, he goes, I want you to teach me how my mom was able to fight to fend off my dad. And she goes, okay. So you get this super cool scene of her teaching him how to wield wind and on some airbender type stuff. Like, you get to see them go face off against one another and her teach him, which is really cool. And you get to see them kind of have this respect and admiration for one another, because she's like, you're the son of my sister. And she can tell that his auntie really loved his mom, and you could tell they really loved one another genuinely. And you kind of really feel for Shang-Chi being back in his mom's home, because he kind of has this moment where he tells Katie, he's like, I killed the guy who killed my mom because I was just so angry. And he's like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier or whatever. And Katie's just like, basically just like still trying to show him, she's like, you're a good guy, like, Sean, like, you're really, like, you just had bad circumstances happen to you in your life. And so they decide to prepare for his dad to come soon, because they know that he's going to be there soon at the village. And you get to see Shang-Chi get his outfit, and you get to see Xialing get hers as well. The outfit that's shown in the posters that he's in, that has dragon scales on it, super cool. I love it. And you get to see him acquire that from the village of the people of Talo that gave it to him. And his dad comes in. You know that it's about to get real when his dad comes through those barriers of Talo. So after all of that, they finally face off, and they start fighting one-on-one. And basically, Shang-Chi's dad uses the fight as a distraction to get to the Great Wall that they have, that he thinks his wife is being imprisoned in. And so after all that, you get to see a little backstory about that. Apparently their village was inhabited by a huge, like, soul-eating monster. So this beautiful dragon by the name of the Great Protector helped imprison that monster behind that wall. And basically it's called the Soul Eater, and it calls out to people. And it's been especially calling out to Shang-Chi's father and using his mom as a way to get him to come to the wall, because the Soul Eater wants to be broken out. And so his dad, not knowing that and being stupid, goes up to the wall and he starts punching it with the 10 rings, and you see the wall steadily, like, cracking, and these, like, mini soul-eating creatures start coming out as his dad repeatedly hits the wall, and they start taking people's souls and killing them and taking them back to the Soul Eater to feed him so he can get bigger. And so after all that, Shang-Chi faces off against his dad, and they have this really cool battle, and it ends with his dad pushing him into the water, and you can basically just see Shang-Chi just floating there until the Great Protector awakens him, and he is underneath underwater, and he awakens Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi opens his eyes and he sees him, and he awakens. And after that, he basically comes out of the water with the Great Protector, and the Great Protector comes out, and he eats a lot of the soul-eating little mini monsters to help them out a lot. And then you see the Archeress along with Katie come out, and they start shooting at the Soul Eaters, and it's a sad scene where Katie grabs her bow, and the man who didn't want to allow them entrance to the village, who took Katie kind of under his wing and taught her archery, goes, don't die. And then he ends up dying himself in front of Katie. And it's like that moment where Katie realizes that she needs to step up, and she really needs to help them out and help them during this hard time. And so after that, you finally see the enormous Soul Eater come through, and you're like, oh crap, as he comes through out of the wall. And he's enormous, and his little mini monsters are constantly killing people and bringing souls back to feed to him, so he's only getting bigger and acquiring more power. And so Shang-Chi and Xialing are riding on the back of the Great Protector dragon, and they're trying to basically stop the Soul Eater. And basically Shang-Chi is like, we need someone to hit him in the throat, because that's where he's basically eating all the people. So if someone hits him there, he won't be able to eat anymore. And so Katie has this super cool moment and this super heroic moment, and she shoots an arrow and she hits him right in the throat, and she's able to help the Great Protector get the upper hand and overtake the Soul Eater. And there's this but before all that happened, Shang-Chi faced off against his father again, and there's this super cool moment where the rings, 5 of the rings go into Shang-Chi's hand, and there's this really cool contrast, you guys, where the rings are blue on Shang-Chi's dad's hands, which I might be wrong, but I feel like the rings being blue in his hand represent sadness to a certain degree, but they're of this glowing orange color on Shang-Chi's hand. And so they're facing off against this ring. That's this cool scene where they're like holding like the rings against one another, and then the Soul Eater actually picks up Shang-Chi's dad, and he kills him and right in front of Shang-Chi. And the last thing his dad does before he dies is put the rings on Shang-Chi's arms as he's dying. And so it's a super sad scene, because you can tell that even though Shang-Chi knew his dad was a bad person, he still had love for his father, because his father was just a broken man. Like, he truly was just a man who was hurting because he lost his wife. Like, he became a much better guy after he met his mom. So to see him kind of fall like this was truly sad. And as he gets on the back of the Great Protector, you see Xialing look back and see her dead father, and they kind of look at each other, and they're kind of like, we're all we got now, basically, in a sense. Like, we're all each other has. Like, both of our parents are gone now, which is super sad. And after the battle is over, you see all the people that died, and they do have this beautiful moment where they release lanterns onto the ocean for all the people who passed while they were fighting the battle. And then after that, they kind of spend like one more night in Talo, and then Katie and Shang-Chi, aka Shang, go back to San Francisco, and they go back to kind of living life normally. And you get this really funny scene of them telling everything about what happened to them in the past few days to their 2 friends. They have a female friend, and I think it's her boyfriend who's beside her. I'm not 100% sure if there was just one of their other male friends, or I'm pretty sure he was her boyfriend. But they tell him, she's like, you guys are definitely like joking with me. There's no way all this happened. They're like, no, like, we're genuinely serious. And she's like, you guys, you don't have to lie to me. Like, you don't have to do that. And then right as they're like trying to convince her to believe them, Wong comes out of nowhere and opens up a portal, and he tells Katie and Shang-Chi, you need to come with me. And their friends are like, what in the... And so Shang-Chi and Katie are like, we told you. And so they go into the portal with Wong, and then the movie ends. Now, fantastic film, absolutely loved it. It got a round of applause in my theater. It was just, everything was amazing about this, from the action sequences to just the acting. Everything was top tier in this film. Absolutely loved Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. I thought he did a fantastic job. I love the actress who portrayed his sister. I love Michelle Kwan as his auntie. And now, with all that out of the way, let's get to the post-credit scenes. So, the first post-credit scene takes you to what happens to Shang-Chi and Katie after they go with Wong. And you see them in the sanctum. And you get to see Carol and Bruce Banner for the first time. And Bruce is no longer Professor Hulk. He's back to his regular self now, which was kind of perplexing to me. I kind of have my theories about what happened. I think Wong may have helped him go back to his normal self. But you see, he still has a sling on from the events of Avengers Endgame, where he snapped the gauntlet and it burned his hand severely and it hurt his arm. So you see, he still has a sling on. And then Carol's hair is longer, so you know some time has passed. And you find out that the rings are over 1,000 years old. They're ancient. And that since Shang-Chi has been wielding them, there's been a beacon going off inside them. So a lot of people were confused about that in the reviews I saw. I think that when Shang-Chi's dad was wielding the rings, a beacon wasn't going off, to my knowledge, possibly. But when Shang-Chi came on, they became a different color. So I feel like possibly because Shang-Chi is pure of heart, and there was a color change within the rings, that means that a signal was emitted now because Shang-Chi is wielding them. I'm not sure. But they say that a beacon is being sent out, and they don't know where it's being sent out to, which is kind of like, okay, that's weird. And so Wong is like, yeah, like, we're gonna have to figure this out. Like, I've read ancient texts about these rings, and I don't see anything on them. And Bruce and Carol are both perplexed too. And then Carol has an issue, which we might get to see her deal with in the Marvels coming out. And she goes, sorry guys, I have an issue, I gotta go. You can get my number from Bruce. And Bruce is like, I don't have a number, I never did. And so you get to see him say bye, and he's like, bye guys. And so Wong is like, we'll figure this out or whatever, and you guys need to prepare for your lives to change. And Shang-Chi's like, yeah. And Wong goes, you guys should probably get some rest. And he goes, and they go do karaoke, and they sing Hotel California in this adorable scene. And I thought it was so funny. I thought it was just super cute how they made it lighthearted at the end. But that's not the last scene. The end credit scene is of Xiaoling chilling in the compound. She's turned the compound into like her underground fighting fortress, since her dad is dead now and he doesn't have any control over her anymore. So that was interesting. I kind of was like, I hope she's doing everything with pure intentions. I'm not 100% sure what her vibe is now. Like, I don't know if she is running her underground fighting thing with just doing it for fun, or if she has plans to do something sinister with it. I'm not sure. But I'm sure our questions will be answered in time. And then it flashes up, the 10 rings will return. I was like, yay! And I'm super excited to see Shang-Chi again, and whatever movie he pops up again. And overall, it was just a fantastic movie, and I enjoyed every moment of it. There was not a second where I was bored or where I wasn't enjoying myself in this film. I thought the humor was well. I thought it landed great. And if anything, it was just so nice to see a Marvel movie in the theaters again, because I didn't see Black Widow in theaters. I actually saw Black Widow at home with my family, and we enjoyed Black Widow. It was pretty good, but Shang-Chi was just on a whole nother level. And now I'm super excited for Spider-Man No Way Home, and the Eternals is coming out next, so that's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to see if I want to go see that, and I'm just excited for everything that Marvel has coming out. Like, I'm just elated with everything that they are doing right now. Kevin Feige definitely knows what he's doing. They had the directing was amazing for Shang-Chi in this movie, and I definitely can see why it's performing well and getting positive reviews. So I think I plan on doing a reaction to the Spider-Man No Way Home, the second trailer, and I'm probably going to talk about the Eternals when it comes out here, so definitely keep your eyes out, you guys, for my next reviews. I'm also going to be reviewing Netflix shows. Sex Education is coming out. I think I might review Clickbait, possibly. I'm going to see. So just stay posted on my channel for when I'm ready to post a video. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow me on my socials. They'll be linked down below. And thank you guys for your time. Bye.